All right. Hey, YouTube, I'm Lucky, and Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays to you all out there. I woke up this morning to notice that I am apparently one of the top trending Reddit posts right now on r/Destiny 2. Someone took a screenshot of one of my tweets and then posted this right here. So let's go ahead and read this and review this and respond to everything that's going on this post, because I find this to be very fun and interesting. So this seems like a terrible take to me, is this post. And then here's my tweet. I said, Bungie made it so you can't pull out your sword in trials unless you have ammo, which is true. If you have a sword on, you just can't pull your sword at any point in time unless you get ammo. So that way it stopped 3-peaking. This stopped 3-peaking and was a great update. So kudos to Bungie. That was a good update. I think we can all agree. There's probably a few people out there that disagree, but that was a good update and good for the playlist overall. Next, I go on to compare this to now Gambit, where I say a similar fix could be not allowing someone to pull out their power weapon when invading in Gambit. This would make invasions somewhat skillful. So the premise that I'm getting is that, right now in Trials, you just can't pull out your power weapon if you have a sword on. So what if when you were invading in Gambit, which is also PvP, right? Like you're in Trials, you're in PvP, you can't pull out your sword at all. What if you're in Gambit and you just can't pull out your power weapon when you have invaded, when you're in the middle of your invasion? You can use your power weapon at any point in time during the PvE section of it, but when you jump through the invasion portal, you can no longer use your power weapon, right? Now, this would make invasions somewhat skillful, because right now people invade, and if you haven't seen it recently, people literally just invade and they've got a bunch of Galahorn ammo. So you got that rocket hitting them, and if it misses or it gets even close, doesn't matter, because those Wolfpack rounds will absolutely eat them up, and is very, very strong, okay? You've got that. You've got Xenophage, you've got Truth, you've got everything. You got so many different power weapons that are so strong. Any power weapon, okay? People pick up the power brick on the wall, they jump in the invasion portal, easy peasy, you kill out the entire team. And the skill is just not there. There's not a very skillful invasion, and that's the part that frustrates me and other people that are, like to play PvP. I would like to see there be some sort of skillful element to invasions in Gambit, because I think that would be a lot more fun. Like, I think we can all agree that we don't really like or repeatedly play playlists like Team Scorched or Mayhem. Like, is anyone like, hey, man, when Mayhem's out, dude, just 5 hours a day, 7 days a week, man, that's all I want to do is just play Mayhem. Like, really? I think we mostly just jump into Mayhem just to beat bounties, and Team Scorch just to mess around just because it's funny or goofy for a little bit. But overall, it doesn't really keep people's attention because there's zero competitive elements to Team Scorched, and Mayhem's like, it's just a silly playlist to just do some silly things. And maybe that's what Bungie wants Gambit to be. They just want the PvP to just be silly and wild and shoot a bunch of rockets and Galahorns at people, which is fine. But I do think that that hurts the playlist popularity and success. Let me know if you agree or disagree. Looking at the responses to this, there's really only one highlighted response. It says, then Truth and Eyes of Tomorrow would really be useless, which proves my point even more, right? Like, it's just funny that this is the top comment, because I think about this. So if Truth and Eyes of Tomorrow are only useful because when you invade, they are absolute free invasion kills, isn't that part of the problem? Like, shouldn't we have the invasion not just be like any sort of, Blueberry Joe jumps in the portal and clicks a button with his power weapon and wipes out the enemy team, right? I feel like there should be some element of skill, and disabling the power weapon would at least be, in my mind, a step in the right direction, right? You disable those power weapons, so now when you invade, you're going to have to get scout rifle kills or sniper kills, and you might think, oh, those aren't skillful either because you're just shooting a scout across the map, but you do have to hit a bunch of different shots. You have to land the crits ideally, and, or land the sniper shot and stuff like that. So there is at least some element of skill, comparative to a tracking rocket with Wolfpack rounds, you know what I'm saying? Or the Truth, which has insane tracking, or Eyes of Tomorrow, which shoots like a dozen different missiles and is very, very hard to miss, right? And then they continue on a bunch of different Reddit posts, with the usual Reddit banter and stuff. And it's entertaining and all, but I did want to have a serious conversation about this because I did make a video posting a while ago where I talked about how Bungie hasn't done Gambit hasn't done Bungie any favors, rather, and Bungie should consider possibly just deleting the playlist and focusing more on PvP and PvE. But if Bungie's not going to go that route, and I know that's a bit of a controversial route, if Bungie's not going to go that route, if they are going to do a complete Gambit revamp, I want to help guide that and give some ideas and some feedback. So that way, maybe just like the Trials revamp has been a huge success, maybe the Gambit revamp will be a big success. And so that's what I'm going to do here. I'm going to talk a little bit about these ideas and the things that I believe are the biggest pain points in Gambit right now, and the biggest revamp, the successful things that would have to happen in order for Gambit to be successful, comparable to Trials and the Strikes playlist, or maybe even Raids or whatever. Just up there in the sort of Destiny universe as like, this playlist is awesome, this is fun, this is why I love Destiny type of thing, right? And so let's start with that premise, right? The Trials revamp happened. It was very successful. Let's talk about what a Gambit revamp would look like. First off, if you want PvP players to play it, you have to have an element of fair competition. Like there has to be some sort of like skill to it. You can't just have people invading, wall hacks, overshield, shooting power ammo like crazy. It's just not going to be, PvP players are not going to be attracted or interested to that in any way. It's not going to be fun for them. So that's why I talked about not being able to pull out your power weapon specifically when you invade. You can have your power weapon any other time. That would be awesome. Another element to that that's a bit frustrating is that you are shooting, let's say the power weapon is disabled, you are still shooting people like in the back of the head while they're trying to clear a bunch of dregs or hive acolytes, right? So their attention is on these acolytes, right? There's like a dozen dregs in front of them and, you know, they're just trying to clear them with their SMG. And then all of a sudden, you know, Blueberry Billy invades and then starts shooting them in the back of the head. It still loses that level of competitiveness, but by disabling the power weapon, there would at least be a step in the right direction. And so that's the two philosophies that Bungie's going to have to decide. Do they want to do a radical revamp of Gambit, or do they want to do a subtle revamp of Gambit? And disabling your power weapon would be on the subtle side. The radical side would be the ideas that I've talked about before, which is that imagine when you invade in Gambit, instead you go into your own instance. Instead of like you've got your instance, the enemy's instance where you're both clearing ads and collecting motes. What if you went into your own instance and you brought someone from the other team and you got into a 1v1? Like it's comparable to like the Gulag if you've played, you know, Battle Royale and Call of Duty recently. Comparable to the Gulag, you'd have like a 1v1 with the last word. Maybe both people just get the last word. Whoever wins, their team gets a buff of 2 abilities for 10 seconds or a buff to super energy for 10 seconds, whatever it may be, right? There could be something like that. That would be an extreme revamp to Gambit. I don't know if Bungie's going to go that route. They probably would go the more subtle route, but that would be my true opinion of how Gambit would be successful, is make that PvP really successful, make it fun, make it, you know, just have its own area so that way you're not in the middle of, you know, fighting enemies, PvE combatants, and then have to deal with, you know, someone sniping you in the back of the head and stuff like that. So let's go on. Let's go continue with the premise of the subtle revamp of Gambit. So that would be nice. And another thing that would be really good for Gambit is PvE bosses that just have dynamic crits and dynamic encounters, right? One thing that I've noticed a lot, and I think that it's a big cop-out with strike bosses, with dungeon bosses, with raid bosses, is immunity phases. These things are a cop-out. These things are lame. It would be so cool if bosses just, instead of having immunity phases, they just had dynamic mechanics, right? I'll give you a good example. A boss that I melt a lot of times, you've seen this on this channel probably a few hundred times now, is melting Morgoth, right? Morgoth has this gigantic crit on his back, right? And you clear the ads, you do the mechanics, and then you group up behind him most of the time, and you shoot him in the back, and then you kill him off altogether, right? Which is really cool. But imagine that being in something like Gambit and having a more dynamic encounter where you shoot his back crit until it's at 50%, and then his back crit shrivels up, and you can't shoot it anymore because it just does such little damage. You can't possibly kill him with any of the weapons we have. And then at the same time, you know, 4 unstoppable ogres spawn and you have to clear them. And then his crit is now on the front of him. So now you have to rotate from shooting him in the back to shooting him in the front. And it creates a cool dynamic rather than immunity phases. So if Bungie really wanted Gambit to be successful on the PvE side, that's what I'm saying right now, is have some dynamic bosses in there, right? The meatball is kind of cool. He's the meatball boss in Gambit. He spawns those little orbs and they do make him immune, which is a bit frustrating, but you know, the ability to shoot those orbs down and then continue the damage is a cool element. I like those dynamic elements to that. If Gambit is to be successful on the PvE side, it needs dynamic bosses like that, where I can be like, okay, cool. If I spec out my build and I spec out my team's build, we can really effectively melt this boss in Gambit. This is going to be sick. That gets me excited. I like raid boss melts. I like efficiency. I like, you know, having these powerful god rolled weapons that I've worked so hard for being utilized in this playlist in Gambit. That would be fun for me on the PvE side. And then again, on the PvP side, there needs to be a competitive element, which disabling power weapons during invasions would definitely be a step in the right direction. And I think this could really help. But there's also even more, you know, drastic and crazier routes that Bungie could go. But let me know your thoughts down in the comment section below. Do you agree or do you disagree with my opinions? It's totally okay if you disagree, if you think that I'm completely wrong on this. But I have played a decent amount of Gambit, and I've played Destiny 2 for I don't even know how many thousands of hours now. So I feel like this is a pretty spot on opinion. And I don't retract anything that I said within this. I agree with this opinion 100%. And if you did enjoy this video, make sure to subscribe with notifications on. Enjoy your holidays. Smash the like button. I'll see you in the next one. Later.